Hello everybody, it's Rue Sims here and welcome back to my channel. In this video, I wanted to finally do the MC Command Center tutorial that I have been planning for a while. And it's taken a lot of planning just so that I can make sure I'm hitting on all the points that I want to hit on. And this tutorial is going to be focused on how to use MC Command Center for story progression in your game. While we're waiting for my Sims to get home, let's talk about what exactly MC Command Center is. mccc is MC Command Center by the mod creator Deadpool. And basically what it does is it grants you more control over your game, including with story progression, but it's more than just story progression. So you can change tuning settings and turn certain behaviors or in-game settings on or off depending on what you like. It's very much about changing this game and changing how the game works to your liking. So it's a very, very cool mod because you can modify just about every aspect of this game based on what you want. For example, through the settings menu, you can turn on testing cheats, full edit in cast, free build. You can set it so that they're always on and you don't have to manually turn them on every single game session. And that's just one example of how powerful it is as a mod. Basically, I'm just going to be going over how to tweak settings to make this game play how you like it to play. There are multiple ways to access the MC Command Center menu and change stuff in your game. So the way that you change general settings like that are through the computer. And don't get confused because there is an MC Command Center menu on your sim, but those are only gonna be like sim specific settings, and you can do manual storytelling things like you can summon sims, you can make them age up and down by setting age, you can modify and cast, you can change their career outfit, which is a really cool thing. I really like it when I'm posing to go through MC Dresser and change their outfit that way because it automatically does it. It doesn't wait for them to like stop and turn the way that the change outfit interaction does. And you can even like start pregnancies. You can start an alien pregnancy on a male sim, or like if I had Delilah here, I could start a pregnancy with her, choose who it would be with, I could set the offspring, you can do all of that through the sim menu. But I'm really going to be focusing on more of the ways to automate story progression rather than having to manually do that and click everything. The way you do that is through the MC Command Center menu on the computer. As you can probably tell, it already looks different than the one on the sim, so when you see these icons, you know that you're in the right place to make all the actual like overarching game changes. Let me jump into the story progression overview with these settings. I'm mainly going to be going over key areas here rather than every single little setting that you can do. Once you download it and like click around a little bit, it's very intuitive, to be honest, and they have really good descriptions about what each of these settings do in case you get confused. And if you do have any specific questions, feel free to comment them down below and I'll do my best to try and answer them. But the first menu that I want to go through is the mccc settings menu. And in this menu, we'll get a bunch of other ones. For example, we have autosave, and this is a really cool one. I've actually never used it. So if you have used it, I'm interested to know what you think about it. The main like story progression settings are more in these other things. So if we hop into relationship settings, for example, this is where we're already seeing a whole bunch of story progression, storyline things that we can toggle on and off. Friendship decay. You can set a value between 0 to 500 of how fast you want friendships to decay. 100 is the default value and you can go up to 500 to be like the fastest, or set it down to 0 if you don't want friendship to decay at all. You can do the same thing for the romantic bar decay. You can change how difficult it is to progress a romantic relationship. The descriptions are so good in this mod. If you're ever confused on like what it means to put in a certain value, just read this description. When you hop into auto relationship settings, I really like to play around with breakup settings and change up like the couple relationship change percent, spouse relationship change percent, just to have a little bit of drama, have a little bit of like divorces and breakups happening out in the world. It's not realistic to have every single couple stay together forever, so I do like to make these a little bit higher. You can move children with the breakup, which specifies whether a sim should take their children with them when they break up and move out. And you can also like change what sim is moving out. The default is to always move out the male sim sim, but you can also turn on moving out the random sim. Here you can also bypass played households, and this is a setting that is in a lot of the menus. For example, you can do it for the pregnancy changes, you can do it for the marriage changes, you can do it for all of it. And what bypass played households means is that when mccc is like going through the sims in your game and deciding whether to make certain changes, in this case whether to break sims up, will it run a check on the households that you have played. If I have this enabled, which it currently is enabled, that means it is not going to do anything to my played households. And I'm not just talking about the current active household like it says here. It's going to bypass all my played households. It's a really useful tool to set, like, if you don't want certain households to be affected by the story progression, this is a really good way to do it. Move-in settings are similar, so you can change up homeless sims moving in, change up what ages are allowed to move in, what romance levels two sims would have to be at in order to move in together in the first place, what percentage you want sims moving in together. So it's basically the entire list of moving in settings. You can change them up through this menu. And like I said, I'm not going to go through every single menu here, but there's other stuff you can do, like allowing teen parenting, which means that they can learn the parenting skill and learn new parenting interactions. You can change up how relationship calling happens. All of that stuff you can find in relationship settings. Next thing in the main settings menu that I want to go over is money settings. So this is where you can turn things on, like turning on inheritance, turning on child support. You can even have your sims auto pay bills. You can change up like how much bills actually cost in your game as well. You can allow children to pay bills. So I really like having inheritance on. I like having child support on. You can change up how much child support would be, like what percentage of a sim's value they would pay for child support. Keep in mind, you do have to change the inheritance sim type to actually have it happen. So I think I usually do played only. I don't like turning on auto pay bills because just like in real life, I like to know what exactly I am paying for in The Sims too. So I don't like to turn it on. I would advise against it, but like, it's up to you. If you want to turn it on, go ahead and turn it on. It is automatically disabled though. Next in the settings menu, let's check out gameplay settings. So this is where you can find things like changing the household size, for example. You can also change up random aging, and I feel like not everybody knows this, but as the description says, there is a feature in the game where like Sims will start a few days into their age span. They won't start at 0. So it's kind of cool, but I like to turn it off personally just because it's like it works for my storytelling, but you can keep it on if you want to as well. One other thing I really like to play around with is adopt neglected child. I do like to enable it so that if a toddler or child is neglected, they're going to be adopted rather than just taken away and disappear. I think it's really good for storytelling in case you do want to play with the storyline. Even if you just do something by accident and get your child taken away, you can get them back. I also really like the addition of having fame difficulty adjustment as well. With this setting, you can make every single sim immortal in your game. If that's what you want, then you can turn that on as well. The last thing I do want to go over here is set age span duration, and this is something that I used to use all the time. This is where you can turn on custom age spans. So if you hop into human, go to normal lifespan, you can set the age span duration for every single life stage. So a value of 0 for every life stage would use EA's default, and they've listed what EA's default is for every single life stage. But then you can like add up to 4,000 EA's default plus 4,000 for every single one of these. So I used to use this a lot so that I could keep aging on and have like my birthday showing up on the calendar while still having more realistic time periods within birthdays. And I still find that the in-game lifespans are either too quick or they're too long or they're just too unrealistic, especially when I play with university. It takes way too long for your Sims to finish university. Now I just keep aging off, but I still think it's a really, really cool feature if you're ever interested in playing around with it and seeing like what lifespan will work for you. Like I mentioned how university takes too long, but another example of when this would be useful is you can make your teen lifespan a little bit longer and have a kind of preteen quote unquote life stage page without having the mod in your game. Obviously, it wouldn't actually change anything about the actual sim, but it could just allow for more time for storytelling. So that's all I want to go over in the settings menu. Next, let's hop into the MC cast menu. In MC cast, you can do a lot in terms of your sim's appearance. For example, you can set physique limits, you can set monitor physique to enabled if you want to keep NPC sims within these limits. You can exclude certain traits if you want to. You can change walk styles on age up. You can do all sorts of things in MC cast. I really want to focus in on the offspring sub menu, and this is a really cool setting for realistic family gameplay because I think it's very cute to see inherited things throughout generations, including seeing things like body type. But if you don't want to see that, this is where you can turn it off as well. So if you go into use parent physical attributes, teenagers will inherit their parent body part values rather than being random. So by default it is disabled, but I like to enable it. And then you can also set a variance percent because it isn't very realistic for it to be the exact same. So you can like play around with this as well to see what you would like. You can use parent skin tones, which is really good if you use CC skin tones. You can set skin details as well, including like freckles and stuff. That's the kind of thing I really love. Lastly, you can also bypass blue babies. Now out of MC cast, let's hop into MC career. MC career is really honing in on employment and stuff like that. So for example, you can allow sims to drop out of school. You can change how difficult university is. You can make university homework faster. It does take a long time by default. There is a setting here to alter neighborhood stories. If you guys don't know, neighborhood stories is the EA story progression. I would actually recommend just turning neighborhood stories off if you have MC Command Center story progression enabled and all these settings enabled. It just makes it easier and like kind of takes it off of your mind. And I'll go over how to do that later in the tutorial. Next, let's hop into MC Cleaner and also MC Dresser. MC Cleaner, as the name suggests, is kind of like a cleanup method. It's a really useful tool just for realism. So for example, if you hop into Item Cleaner, there's a sync glasses thing where if enabled, it's going to copy glasses to all of your Sims outfits except for bathing, sleeping, and swimming. Like, so useful. Such a small little detail, but adds so much to realism. You can sync household names as well. In Sim Cleaner, you can sync married names. And then in Relationship Cleaner, you can like choose who is actually going to be cleaned by mccc. So in my mind, MC Cleaner kind of goes hand in hand with MC Dresser, but MC Dresser is like honing in more on like the cast items that are being cleaned up. So for example, you can turn on automatically cleaning bathing outfits, but you can do a lot more in this menu with setting certain cast related things. Like in the makeup settings, you could enable or disable makeup on different ages. Like right now it's on teen to adult, but if you want it included on elders, you can enable that. So what you would do is change makeup ages. You can do the same with makeup genders. By default it's only on female, but you can put on male too if you want. You can also change what outfits they are on. By default I might put it back on hot weather. I would definitely take it off of swimwear as well. So like very customizable to change up the ages, the genders, the outfit, all through the makeup settings menu. And then you can run makeup check, and when you enable it, that's when it's going to like continuously keep checking on NPC sims to see if they are abiding by your settings. You can do something very similar with facial hair. You can even set like percentages of sims that have facial hair depending on the age group. You can change how many sims are using custom skin tones. In terms of outfits, you can change up after career outfits what the sim is going to have after they get home from work, and if it's default, they'll just change in their career outfit. Next, I do want to hop into MC clubs. I love this addition just because I use clubs a lot, so it's nice to have NPC sims use it too and have them joining or leaving clubs themselves. You can also increase the club member count. I like to set it at around 10. I would say probably don't set it too high. They do have the maximum value of 50 here, but like if you set it too high, then there's going to be a lot of sims on a lot, and that might just cause performance issues. So just keep that in mind when you are playing around with these settings. Like some things might cause problems in your game. What I like to do is set monitoring club members so that vacancies start to be filled. And then you can also set like how many clubs a sim can have, a max amount, and you can also set like how many open positions will be left in each club. For clubs, I do like to keep bypassing played households enabled just because for club, that's something something I like to have more control over what my Sims are getting into, but you can also turn that off if you don't like it. Next, let's check out MC Occult. So this is a menu that allows you to make your occult storylines a lot more elaborate and nuanced. So for example, if we hop into aliens, you can change up abduction settings, pregnancy settings. I do like to allow NPC abductions. I think it makes it a little bit more fun. You can also change up like specific things about each abduction. You can change up what ages can be abducted. You can change up the frequency too if you want, and you can change up the pregnancy. So change up the pregnancy percent. By default it's 30, which is higher than I thought it was, because I thought it was really difficult to get your Sims pregnant. Even if you like spam alien abductions, it's hard. And you can change it based on the age as well. You can change up gender, so you can even make females pregnant if you want. You can set it so males can pollinate if you want as well. There's a bunch of other settings you can do, like with vampires you can turn on risky vampirism, which means that if you feed on a Sim, they can potentially become a vampire by accident. And you can change some stuff about werewolves. You can set a maximum amount of werewolves. You can do some stuff with mermaids as well. So just a way, like I said, to add a little bit more personalization to the way that occults work in your game, which I think is really, really cool for people that play with occults a lot. And even for people that don't, it might help you get more into playing with occults if you have this much like control over what's going on. Next, let's hop into MC Tuner. I did kind of go over this in one of my previous videos, just a little bit, just touched on it, and that's honestly all I'm really gonna do again, because there's a lot of different things you can do through MC Tuner. It's really where you can change a bunch of behaviors and autonomy if you want. So for example, you can disallow the monster under the bed if it annoys you too much. You can do that. Allow multiple BFFs. I like to do that sometimes. You can ask to stay the night will be friendly. Stop random flirting is nice as well. You can disallow emotional deaths too if you want. Interaction autonomy. This is where you can turn on autonomous proposals, autonomous marriage. You can also turn off autonomous mischief. Now we are going to get into the meat of the story progression, and that is going to be in MC population and MC pregnancy. So let's first look at MC population. This is where you are going to get, as the name suggests, a lot of the populating settings. So like moving settings, for example, you can set how the game moves people out, how the game moves strays in, set a homeless percentage, allow homeless move in. You can have teens not treated as dependents, because I think by default they are. So like if you want your teens to be able to move without their caregivers, toggle that. You can play with it. Moving single Sims and stuff like that, max household pets. There's a lot of settings you can play with here. And same with populating. You can change how many of each of these life stages are going to populate in your game. This is also where you can import tray settings. If you go into import tray sim percent, you can make it so that the game randomly take Sims from your library instead of the regular NPCs. So this is a really cool thing to do. You can go into the gallery, save a bunch of Sims to your library, and then they will populate in the game. Another setting I really like in moving is open houses. I like to set it at around 3 or 4. This is basically the amount of houses in your game that Sims will not move to automatically. So it'll be like how many houses in your game are going to stay open at all times. It's nice to have an actual house or a lot where they can go. Even if I'm like completely remodeling that house, it's nice to at least have that option. I know in one of my other videos, one of my gameplay tip videos, we talked about how like the game will like continuously just keep making Sims adopt cats and dogs. You can change that here if you want to change the maximum number of household pets. You can change it here. Oh, one more thing I wanted to call out in moving settings, I like to set homeless apartment percentage to 50%, just so some of the apartments as well stay empty. Now the next menu that is again the meat of story progression is MC pregnancy. So this is where you can set all the like pregnancy, marriage, all that stuff, all those settings. That's where you can do it. So there's a lot of different settings here. It can get a little bit overwhelming, but the main things that I like to focus on are pregnant Sim selection, partner Sim selection, marriage Sim selection, and spouse Sim selection. So I'm just going to use pregnant Sim selection as an example of how you would basically set up each of them, because the main thing you have to do in each of these is to run checks. So what you would do is go into each of these menus, click days to run checks, and just click one of them. By default, it's just Saturday. With the mod-in, I don't think they're running checks on any day, but you can pick as many as you want. And what running checks is, we've seen it in a few of the other menus, but it basically like runs through all of the sims in the game and selects sims based on the settings that you have chosen to make pregnant. So I would recommend only setting it to 1 day a week, just because otherwise you might get a little bit overrun with babies and pregnancies. But that is like the basic thing you have to do for all of the menus. Also, for marriage and pregnancy, I don't like to bypass played households because I like a little bit of spice and drama in my game. So sometimes it's fun to get the notification that one of your played sims got married or got pregnant, and it's like, oh my god, what just happened? And it's like a really cool addition to storytelling. So you can change up the target ages. I do like to add young adult to the pregnancy target ages. You can change up male pregnancy. You can say allow or same-sex only if you wanted. You can have it bypass renters if you want. Now for partner sim selection, I like to turn on allowing affairs percentage. So I don't turn it on too high, maybe like 5 to 10%, just to like, again, have a little bit of drama, have a little bit of spice in the game. It's kind of realistic to have that set to a little bit at least. You can limit partners by relationship, so they will only have pregnancies if they're married, significant others, woohoo partners, or you can set it to no relationship limit, which is the default. You can change the same-sex pregnancy percentage as well. You can make it use the same age group, so only like young adults will get pregnant with other young adults, adults with other adults, that kind of thing. And there's other settings that you can play around with, toggle on and off, and see what you like here. In terms of marriage, again, it's very similar to the pregnancy setting. You want to run checks. Again, I would usually keep it at 1 day. You can bypass active sim romances so that random marriages won't like just come in and break up some romance that's going on. So I like to keep that enabled. Also, like I said, I do like to disable bypassing played households for marriage. You can set valid marriage ages. I like to keep young adult and elder on. I don't think there's any reason elders shouldn't be able to get married. You can also just set the overall marriage percentage by age. I think you can do the same in terms of pregnancy. Yeah, you can. So they're very similar. The two menus are very, very similar. It may take a little bit to get familiar with the different like options, but it is very intuitive once you click around in it. And the menu that goes hand in hand with marriage is spouse sim selection, and this is where you can allow multiple spouses. You can do same-sex percentage if you wanted to. You can make it so that it's only the same age group that are getting married, valid spouse ages, all that kind of stuff you can set here. Again, very similar to partner sim selection. The great thing about MC Command Center is it's so easy to hop in here and configure and change settings. If you do something like on accident or just that you end up not liking, just hop back in here and change it up. So just to go over the settings that I usually like to do in pregnancy, when you go into pregnancy percentage, I like to have it so young adults and adults can get pregnant, not elders, and usually more adults than young adults. Again, I try to set it kind of lower, like around 10 to 20% for both, just to avoid too many kids in the game. Then for partner ages, I usually set it to young adult and adult for pregnancy as well. Like I said, I do like to allow affairs between 5 and 10% max. Next, in occupancy preference, I do like to set it to home sims just because it's a little bit more realistic, but you can always leave that off if you want. I also want to go over the offspring menu here. So this is different than the offspring menu we saw before, and this is where we see one of my favorite things in MC Command Center, which is you can have your sims inherit traits. I love that so much. I don't know how realistic it is, really. I mean, I think it kind of is, but if you don't like it, you can always turn it off. But you can also turn on inheriting a random number of traits or a maximum number. And then you would set maximum inherit traits as well if you wanted to do that. So very, very freaking cool. I love that addition. I love turning it on, and like similar to having like the physical traits inherited throughout generations, I think it's always cool to see like a personality trait inherited by your Sim's child, like maybe they take after one of their parents a little bit more. In the offspring menu, you can set identical offspring chance if you want. You can make it higher to make identical twins more common. You can set maximum household children or maximum offspring. I also like to turn on sync child surname. In terms of other marriage, I do like to manually rename spouses. Use traits for marriage is a really cool thing to toggle. There's also some really cool other settings that you can do. Like for example, you can turn on same neighborhood. So like Sims might prefer to start romantic relationships with a Sim in their neighborhood. That's pretty cool. In terms of pregnancy, I like to make the auto marry percentage a little bit higher just to avoid broken homes a little bit, like not to 100%, but maybe to like 70% or so. You can change up pregnancy duration if you wanted to over here, and even use traits for pregnancy, similar to what I was just talking about with the traits for marriage. You can also turn on pregnancy aging if you wanted to. There's a really cool setting here if you are a rotational player called pause on playable labor, and basically it's that if a Sim that you're not playing is going into labor, then you'll get a notification and your game's gonna pause so that you can like go hop into that household, have the baby. So there's a lot of really cool settings in the MC pregnancy, and like I was saying, it is really the meat to me of story progression. I would highly suggest just like clicking around here whenever you have time and seeing what you can turn on and off. Like I didn't even get into pet pregnancy at all, so there's a lot you can do, including adoption settings, which I actually do want to quickly go over because I like having adoption settings on. I like keeping adoption at all ages, but if you wanted to make it like only babies and infants or something, I don't know, whatever you personally want to do, you can change it up here. I like having the same-sex adoption percent kind of high because it's a little bit realistic, but I also like turning on opposite sex adoption percent too. Again, click around in adoption settings, click around in all of the MC pregnancy modules, and you will find so many ways to customize how pregnancies are happening in your game. So I think I went over every single module, and that is how I use MC Command Center for story progression. There is a separate MC Woohoo module that you can download to toggle things like risky woohoo percentage. You can use it to increase frequency of pregnancy, the percentage chance of actually getting pregnant, you can increase it. You can enable no strings woohoo, and you can do like a bunch of stuff like that. I personally don't have that module, so I can't really go into it. I use some other relationship and pregnancy mods, but definitely check it out. The mccc download page is linked in my description, and MC Woohoo can be found from there too. I'm not sure if MC Woohoo conflicts with any of the other like relationship or pregnancy mods. Just be careful and double check that before you download it so that like you avoid anything weird happening in your game. Before I end this tutorial, I wanted to hop into manage roles real quick because I wanted to show you guys how to turn off neighborhood stories. So what you have to do is go up here to the icon of two people and the little pencil, and it's called manage households, and when you click it, you'll get this menu with my households and other households. These two are my played households, and these are all of the other households in the save file. So this icon up here, this little like arrows thing, is how you toggle neighborhood stories on and off. So if you click it here in the my households tab, it's all gonna be off because I have not enabled neighborhood stories for my household. But then if you go into other households, this is gonna be green, which means it's enabled. All you have to do to disable neighborhood stories and only touch MC Command Center is unclick that, confirm, and that's it. You can see it's not green anymore, and that's how you know that you've done it correctly. And it's very, very simple. I like to turn it off. I would recommend turning it off just because it makes me feel a little bit better and a little bit more confident that nothing is happening in my game that I don't know about. If you guys do know of any other ways that like MC Command Center and neighborhood stories work together or whatever, please comment them down below. And also just in general, if you guys have any tips or anything that I didn't go over in this video about like how to best use MC Command Center for story progression, please feel free to comment them or comment any questions or anything that you may have. I love it when you guys comment, and I'd love to know if you have anything else to add. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Do consider joining the channel as a member for access to some exclusive perks. And with that, I will see you later. Bye guys.